The Galactic Federation had existed for 12,000 years. In that time, countless species had joined its ranks. They had solved problems of faster-than-light travel, universal translation, and even the sharing of atmospheres on space stations. But they had never solved the problem of genuine friendship between species. Ambassador Crixvel stood at the observation window of Station Prime, watching the blue and green marble called Earth spin slowly in the void. The Velthari was tall and thin, with gray skin that shifted colors based on emotion. Right now, it was a troubled shade of deep purple. "You seem worried," said a voice behind him. Crixvel turned to find Ambassador Theska of the Koreth standing there. She was shorter than him, covered in fine scales that gleamed gold in the station's light. Her 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "I am always worried," Crixvel admitted. "The Federation faces its greatest challenge. Our alliance grows weaker every cycle. Species that once worked together now barely speak. Trade disputes become cold wars become hot ones, and the Council has no idea how to fix it." Theska made a clicking sound that served as a Koreth sigh. "That is why we are here, is it not? To study the humans." "Yes," Crixvel said, "though I still do not understand why the High Council thinks these newcomers can help us." Humans had only joined the Federation 50 years ago. In galactic terms, they were infants. Their technology was borrowed. Their military was small. Their influence was limited to a handful of colony worlds. By every measure the Federation used to judge species, they were unremarkable. "And yet—" "Have you read the reports?" Theska asked. "I have read them 3 times. I still do not believe them." The reports were strange. They spoke of human diplomats who had resolved conflicts that had lasted centuries. They told of human traders who were welcomed on worlds where outsiders were typically killed on sight. They described human military officers who had earned the loyalty of soldiers from dozens of different species. The common thread in all these reports was something the translators struggled to define. The humans called it pack bonding. "Our shuttle leaves in 1 hour," Theska said. "We should prepare." The diplomatic delegation consisted of 12 ambassadors from 12 different species. They had been chosen by the High Council to study human social behavior and determine if it could be taught to others. It was, everyone agreed, a desperate measure. But these were desperate times. The shuttle ride to Earth was quiet. Most of the ambassadors spent it reviewing their notes or meditating. Crixvel simply stared out the window, watching the planet grow larger. They landed at a place called New Geneva, the human capital for interstellar affairs. It was a beautiful city built around a great lake, with mountains rising in the distance. The air was thin but breathable, and the sky was a shade of blue that Crixvel found oddly calming. A human woman was waiting for them at the landing pad. She was of average height for her species, with dark skin and hair that was twisted into dozens of small braids. She wore a simple uniform that marked her as a diplomat. "Welcome to Earth," she said. Her voice was warm and she smiled as she spoke. "I am Dr. Amara Okonkwo. I will be your guide and instructor during your stay here." Crixvel stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Crixvel of the Velthari. On behalf of the delegation, I thank you for receiving us." "The pleasure is ours," Dr. Okonkwo said. "Though I must admit, when the Federation asked us to teach pack bonding, we were not sure where to begin. It is not something we typically think about. It is simply how we are." "Perhaps you could start by defining the term," suggested Ambassador Theska. Dr. Okonkwo considered this for a moment. "Pack bonding is the human tendency to form emotional attachments with almost anything. Other humans, of course, but also animals, plants, machines, and even abstract concepts. Once we bond with something, we feel responsible for it. We protect it. We care for it. We would die for it." "That sounds like a weakness," said Ambassador Vrex of the Thornaki. He was a large being, covered in natural armor plates. His species prided itself on strength and self-reliance. Dr. Okonkwo did not seem offended. Many species have thought so, but I think you will find that our bonds make us stronger, not weaker. They give us reasons to fight harder, work longer, and sacrifice more than we ever could alone. She led them to a series of vehicles that would take them to their accommodations. As they walked, Crixville noticed something strange. The human workers at the spaceport seemed genuinely happy to see them. They waved and smiled. A few even called out greetings. "Do your people always greet strangers this way?" he asked. "Often, yes," Dr. Okonkwo said, "especially when those strangers come in peace. We have learned that the universe can be cold and dangerous. Kindness costs us nothing, but it can mean everything to someone far from home." Crixville thought about that. In 12,000 years, no Federation species had ever greeted him with simple kindness just because he was far from home. Their accommodations were in a building called the Unity Center. It had been designed specifically for hosting alien visitors, with rooms that could be adjusted for different atmospheres, gravities, and temperature preferences. But it was the common areas that caught Crixville's attention. They were filled with comfortable seating, warm lighting, and displays of art from hundreds of worlds. There were plants growing in carefully tended gardens. There was soft music playing, and everywhere there were humans ready to help with anything the visitors might need. "This is unexpected," Theska said quietly. "What did you expect?" Dr. Okonkwo asked. "I am not sure, something more, functional perhaps. This feels like a home." The human smiled. "That is the idea. We believe that comfort and belonging are not luxuries, they are necessities. When someone feels at home, they are more open, more trusting, more willing to connect. That is where pack bonding begins." That evening, the delegation gathered for what the humans called a welcome dinner. It was held in a large hall with tables arranged in a circle. The food was prepared to suit each species' dietary needs, and the humans had clearly done their research. Crixville found dishes that reminded him of his childhood on Velthar Prime. During the meal, humans moved from table to table, talking with each ambassador. They asked questions about their homes, their families, their interests. They shared stories about Earth and human history. They laughed and listened and seemed genuinely interested in every word that was spoken. Ambassador Vrex, who had earlier dismissed pack bonding as weakness, found himself deep in conversation with a young human named Marcus. They were discussing battle tactics, a topic the Thornaki warrior had assumed no human would understand. But Marcus spoke with knowledge and respect, and Vrex found himself sharing stories he had never told anyone outside his clan. "How do they do this?" Theska asked Crixville quietly. "I have been to 1,000 diplomatic functions. I have never felt this, included." "I do not know," Crixville admitted, "but I intend to find out." As the evening wound down, Dr. Okonkwo addressed the group. "Tomorrow, we will begin your formal studies. You will observe humans in various settings. You will participate in activities designed to demonstrate pack bonding, and you will learn the techniques we use to build connections across species boundaries. But tonight, I simply want you to rest and know that you are welcome here. Whatever your mission, whatever your doubts, you are among friends now." Friends, it was such a simple word. But as Crixville returned to his room that night, he realized that in 12,000 years of the Galactic Federation, no one had ever called him that. The first formal lesson began the next morning. Dr. Okonkwo gathered the ambassadors in a room that looked more like a comfortable living space than a classroom. There were soft chairs arranged in a circle, warm drinks available for those who could consume them, and sunlight streaming through large windows. "Before we discuss theory," Dr. Okonkwo said, "I want to tell you a story. It is about a human named Maria and a machine called Rover." She activated a display that showed images of a small wheeled robot on the surface of a red planet. 200 years ago, before humans had faster-than-light travel, we sent robots to explore our neighboring planet, Mars. One of these robots was called Spirit. It was designed to operate for 90 days. Instead, it worked for over 2,000 days, far exceeding every expectation. The ambassadors watched the images change, showing the robot traversing rocky terrain, taking samples, sending data back across the void of space. When Spirit finally stopped working, stuck in soft sand and unable to generate power, humans across Earth mourned. They wrote songs about it. They made art. They held vigils. The scientists who had operated the robot cried as they sent the final commands. Ambassador Vrex shifted uncomfortably. You mourned a machine, a tool. We mourned a friend, Dr. Okonkwo said gently. Spirit had been part of our lives for years. We had watched it struggle and succeed. We had celebrated when it survived harsh winters and worried when systems failed. It had a personality to us. It was brave and determined. When it died alone on that cold planet, we felt its loss. But it had no consciousness, said Ambassador Theska. It could not feel your concern or appreciate your attachment. No, and that is precisely the point. Dr. Okonkwo sat down among them, making herself part of the circle rather than standing apart. Pack bonding does not require reciprocity. We do not form attachments because we expect something in return. We form them because that is who we are. And this tendency, which might seem irrational, has shaped our entire civilization. She went on to explain how humans had bonded with animals, turning wolves into dogs who would die for their human families. She told of how humans formed attachments to their vehicles, their homes, even their favorite chairs. She described how human soldiers would risk everything to recover the bodies of fallen comrades, not because it made tactical sense, but because you did not leave pack members behind. This is inefficient, observed Ambassador Crixvel. Resources spent on irrational attachments could be used more productively. Efficient societies are not always successful ones, Dr. Okonkwo replied. The Federation is highly efficient. Your trade routes are optimized. Your resource allocation is logical. Your diplomatic protocols maximize mutual benefit. And yet your alliance is failing. Species that should be working together are drifting apart. Do you know why? No one answered. Because efficiency without emotion creates connections without meaning. You trade with each other because it is profitable. You ally with each other because it is strategic. But you do not love each other. And when times get hard, when profits fall and strategies fail, you have no reason to stay together. The room was silent. Crixvel felt his skin shifting to an uncomfortable shade of orange, a sign of deep thought and slight distress. The human had struck at the heart of the Federation's problems with a precision that no analyst had ever managed. Let me show you something, Dr. Okonkwo said. She led them out of the room and through the Unity Center to a large garden. In the garden, a group of human children were playing with young beings from several different species. A human girl, perhaps 8 years old, was helping a young Velthari learn to throw a ball. The Velthari child's coordination was different from a human's, and the throws kept going wrong. But the human girl did not get frustrated. She adjusted her teaching, found new ways to explain, and celebrated every small success. Nearby, a human boy was reading a story to a group that included a young Korath and a tiny Thornaki. The story was about a brave little ship that sailed across a great ocean. The children of all species were captivated, leaning in to see the pictures, making sounds of excitement at the dramatic parts. These children have known each other for 3 weeks, Dr. Okonkwo said. Watch how they interact. As the ambassadors watched, something remarkable happened. The young Velthari finally managed a proper throw. The ball sailed through the air and landed right where it was supposed to. The human girl let out a cheer of pure joy. She ran to the Velthari and wrapped her arms around him in what Crixvel recognized as a human gesture of affection. The young Velthari's skin turned bright blue, a color that Crixvel had not seen on his own kind in decades. It meant happiness, pure, uncomplicated happiness. Ambassador Crixvel, Dr. Okonkwo said softly, when was the last time you saw an adult Velthari turn that color? Crixvel could not answer. His own skin was cycling through colors he could not control. Human children bond easily, Dr. Okonkwo continued. They do not see differences the way adults do. To that little girl, your young one is not an alien or a representative of another species. He is her friend. She worried about him when he struggled. She believed in him when he doubted himself. And she celebrated his success as if it were her own. That is pack bonding. Ambassador Theska stepped closer to the fence that separated them from the garden. How do you teach children to do this? We do not teach them. They do it naturally. What we teach them is not to stop doing it. Many species teach their young to be cautious, to judge, to protect themselves from connection. We teach ours that connection is worth the risk. That afternoon, the ambassadors were given an unusual assignment. Each of them was paired with a human who shared one of their interests. Crixvel, who had mentioned a fondness for strategy games, found himself matched with an elderly human named Samuel Chen. Samuel was a retired diplomat who had spent 30 years working with alien species. His hair was white, his movements were slow, and his eyes held a wisdom that came only from a long life well lived. I understand you play Velthari chess, Samuel said as they sat down across from a game board. You know of our game, Crixvel was surprised. I learned it 40 years ago from a Velthari trader. He was stranded on one of our stations when his ship broke down. We spent 3 months together while waiting for parts. By the end, we were brothers. Brothers, but you are not of the same species. Samuel smiled. Family is not about blood, it is about choice. Vex chose me, I chose him. We have exchanged messages every week for 40 years. I attended his offspring's naming ceremonies through video link. He was there when my wife died. Brothers. They began to play. Samuel was surprisingly skilled and the game stretched into hours. As they played, they talked. Samuel asked about Crixvel's life, his work, his hopes and fears. He listened with genuine interest, asked follow-up questions, and shared his own experiences in return. Crixvel found himself saying things he had never told anyone. He spoke of his frustration with the Federation's decline, his fear that his work as an ambassador was meaningless, his loneliness in a career that kept him far from home and surrounded by strangers. That is a heavy burden, Samuel said. Thank you for trusting me with it. Why do I trust you? Crixvel asked. It was not a rhetorical question. He genuinely did not understand why he had opened up to this human he had just met. Because I asked, because I listened, because I shared my own vulnerabilities with you first. Humans call it building trust. It is the foundation of pack bonding. We show you our weaknesses so you feel safe showing yours. Is that not dangerous, to show weakness? Of course it is. Trust always involves risk, but without risk there is no real connection, only transactions. Samuel won the game. Crixvel did not mind. He had won something more valuable. He had made a friend. That evening the ambassadors gathered again for dinner. The atmosphere was different from the night before. There was more talking, more laughter, more sharing. Barriers were beginning to fall. Ambassador Vrex approached Crixvel with 2 drinks. I have learned something today, the Thornaki said, his voice quieter than usual. As have I. My human partner took me to meet her family. Her children were not afraid of me. They climbed on my armor plates and asked me to tell stories of battle. When I spoke of a comrade I lost, the youngest one cried for someone she had never met. Vrex paused. I have never seen such empathy from anyone outside my own clan. They feel our pain as their own, Crixvel said. I do not know how they do it, but they do. It is terrifying, Vrex admitted, and wonderful. Dr. Okonkwo joined them. I see the lessons are taking hold. You have given us much to think about, Crixvel said, But I still do not understand how we can teach this to others. You say humans bond naturally, but we do not. How can we learn to feel something that does not come naturally to us? That is what tomorrow's lesson is about, Dr. Okonkwo said with a smile. Tonight, rest, process what you have experienced, and remember that you are already beginning to bond. Look around this room, see how you have changed in just one day. Crixvel looked. He saw Theska deep in conversation with a Thornaki ambassador she had barely spoken to before. He saw representatives of species that had feuded for centuries sitting together, sharing food and stories. He saw walls coming down. Perhaps there was hope after all. On the third day, Dr. Okonkwo brought the ambassadors to a place she called the Memorial Garden. It was a peaceful space filled with trees, flowers, and small monuments. Paths wound through the greenery, leading to quiet places for reflection. This garden commemorates those who died in the service of peace, Dr. Okonkwo explained. Humans, yes, but also members of other species who worked alongside us. Each monument tells a story. She led them to a statue of a human and a Koreth standing side by side. The Koreth figure had all four of its arms extended in a protective gesture. This is Captain Alina Vasquez and Ambassador Krethnow. 20 years ago, they were negotiating a trade agreement on a neutral station when terrorists attacked. The attackers wanted to destroy the talks and start a war between their species. Krethnow was wounded in the initial blast. Alina could have escaped. Instead, she stayed. She carried Krethnow to safety while fighting off attackers. She took 3 wounds protecting him. When help finally arrived, she was unconscious from blood loss but still shielding him with her body. Ambassador Theska moved closer to the statue. Krethnow was my grandfather's clutch brother. He spoke of Alina often. He said she was the bravest person he ever knew. She said the same of him, Dr. Okonkwo replied. They were family until Krethnow died of old age. Alina visits this statue every year on the anniversary of the attack. She brings flowers and sits here for hours talking to him. Talking to a statue, Ambassador Vrek seemed confused. Talking to her friend. Humans maintain bonds even with those who are gone. We remember, we honor, we keep the connection alive in our hearts. They continued through the garden, stopping at various monuments. There were stories of sacrifice, of courage, of love that crossed species boundaries. Each story demonstrated the same principle. Once humans bonded with someone, that bond was unbreakable. Crixvel found himself deeply affected. His skin cycled through colors as emotions he rarely felt washed over him. How do you bear it? He asked. All this loss, all this grief, does it not weigh you down? It does, Dr. Okonkwo admitted. Humans carry our grief with us always, but we also carry our love. The two cannot be separated. To feel great loss, you must have felt great connection. We consider it worth the pain. After the garden, they attended what Dr. Okonkwo called a practical demonstration. They were taken to a human military base where joint training exercises were being conducted. Soldiers from 5 different species worked together on complex tactical scenarios. A human commander named Colonel David Wright greeted them. He was tall, with gray at his temples and scars on his hands that spoke of past battles. Welcome to Camp Unity, he said. We run joint exercises here year-round, different species learning to fight together, but more importantly, learning to trust each other. Trust takes time, Ambassador Vrek said. Warriors do not simply trust strangers with their lives. You are right, Colonel Wright agreed, which is why we do not ask them to be warriors together first. Watch. He led them to an observation area overlooking a training field. Below, soldiers were not drilling or fighting. They were cooking together, building shelters together, playing games together. We spend the first month doing nothing military at all, the colonel explained. They eat together, sleep in shared quarters, share stories around fires at night. By the time we begin tactical training, they already care about each other. They are not just soldiers following orders. They are friends protecting friends. A group finished their cooking and sat down to eat. A human soldier was showing a Thornaki how to use what appeared to be some kind of eating utensil. The Thornaki's claws were not designed for such delicate work, and food kept falling. But the human did not laugh or show impatience. He simply kept helping, kept encouraging, kept trying new approaches. Private Marcus spent 3 hours yesterday teaching Warrior Krek to braid his daughter's hair in the human style, Colonel Wright said. Krek wanted to send a video home showing his daughter that her father was learning human customs. Marcus volunteered to help without being asked. Why would he spend 3 hours on something so trivial? Krixvel asked. Because it mattered to Krek, and Krek matters to Marcus. That is all the reason a human needs. The colonel then showed them something that made even Ambassador Vrex go silent. It was a wall covered with photographs. Each photo showed a human soldier and a non-human soldier together. Some were formal portraits. Others were casual, showing them laughing together, celebrating together, or simply sitting side by side. These are our fallen brothers and sisters, Colonel Wright said. His voice grew softer. Human and non-human, they died protecting each other. Every soldier on this base knows their names. We tell their stories to each new class. We make sure they are never forgotten. He pointed to one photograph. It showed a young human woman with her arm around a Velthari male. They were both smiling. Lieutenant Sarah Kim and Warrior Velthaz. 2 years ago their unit was ambushed. Velthaz took a hit meant for Sarah. He could not walk. Sarah could have left him. She would have been justified. Instead, she carried him 4 miles through hostile territory. When they were surrounded, she stood over his body and fought until reinforcements arrived. She took 11 wounds. She never let go of her weapon. Did they survive? Krixvel asked. His voice was unsteady. Velthaz did. Sarah did not. Her last words were asking if her friend was safe. The colonel paused. Velthaz comes back here every year. He trains the new recruits. He makes sure Sarah's sacrifice means something. Krixvel felt something wet on his face. He touched it and found moisture. He was crying. He had not cried since he was a child. That evening, the ambassadors gathered in a small room with Dr. Okonkwo for a more intimate discussion. The day had been emotionally draining, and everyone seemed subdued. I need to understand something, Ambassador Theska said. Your species is capable of tremendous cruelty. Your history is filled with wars, genocide, and suffering. How can the same beings who committed such horrors also be capable of such profound connection? Dr. Okonkwo nodded slowly. It is a fair question, and one we ask ourselves. The answer, I think, is that our capacity for connection and our capacity for cruelty come from the same place. We feel deeply. We bond intensely. And when those bonds are threatened or broken, we can become monsters. Many of our worst acts were committed in the name of protecting our own groups from outsiders. Then how did you overcome it? Krixvel asked. By expanding our definition of pack. It took us thousands of years. We had to learn painfully that our tribe was not just our family or our village or our nation. Our tribe is everyone capable of connection. Once we understood that, our greatest weakness became our greatest strength. Ambassador Vrex leaned forward. You are saying we must learn to see all species as part of our pack. Yes, not as allies of convenience, not as trading partners, but as family, people we would die for, people we would live for, people whose joys become our joys and whose sorrows become our sorrows. That is a difficult thing to learn, Theska said. It is, but look at yourselves. 3 days ago you were strangers representing competing interests. Now you sit together, share drinks, discuss your fears openly. You are already learning. The process has already begun. Krixvel looked around the room. Dr. Okonkwo was right. Something had shifted. The ambassadors were no longer maintaining careful diplomatic distances. They were sitting close together, leaning in when others spoke, showing genuine interest in each other's words. Tomorrow, Dr. Okonkwo said. We will discuss how to teach these principles to others, how to create programs that foster pack bonding across species, how to change cultures that have been isolated for thousands of years. It will be the hardest lesson, but also the most important. As the others departed for sleep, Crixvel lingered. Dr. Okonkwo, may I ask a personal question? Of course. Why do you care so much about this? About us? We are strangers from distant worlds. We have nothing to offer you that you could not get elsewhere. Why invest such effort in helping us? The human woman smiled. Because you exist. Because you are here reaching out trying to be better. Because somewhere in the universe there are beings who feel alone and afraid just as humans once did. If we can help you find connection, you will help others. The circle expands. The pack grows. And someday, maybe, no one in the galaxy will have to be alone. You truly believe that? I truly believe in trying. That is what humans do. We try, we fail, we try again. We never give up on each other. And now, Ambassador, you are one of us. We will never give up on you either. Crixvel returned to his room that night with tears still fresh on his face. But they were no longer tears of sorrow. They were tears of hope. The fourth day began differently. Instead of gathering in comfortable rooms or peaceful gardens, the ambassadors were taken to what the humans called the Simulation Center. It was a large building filled with advanced technology, able to create realistic scenarios for training purposes. Today, Dr. Okonkwo announced, you will experience pack bonding directly, not as observers or students but as participants. You will face challenges that require you to work together, depend on each other, and trust each other. By the end of the day, you will understand what we have been teaching in a way that words cannot convey. The ambassadors were divided into teams. Crixvel found himself with Ambassador Theska, Ambassador Vrex, and a quiet Morathi diplomat named Shimkel. The Morathi had barely spoken during their time on Earth. Her species was known for their isolation and distrust of others. Their first challenge was a simulated emergency. The scenario placed them on a space station that was losing atmosphere. They had to work together to seal breaches, rescue trapped crew members, and reach safety before time ran out. At first they struggled. Each ambassador was used to working alone or commanding others. They gave conflicting orders. They got in each other's way. The simulation ended in failure. What went wrong? Dr. Okonkwo asked. We did not coordinate, Crixvel admitted. Each of us tried to lead. None of us tried to follow. And why is that? Because we do not trust each other enough to follow, Vrex said. The admission seemed to cost him. Then build that trust. You have 10 minutes before the next scenario. Use them. The four ambassadors looked at each other awkwardly. None of them knew how to build trust quickly. Finally, Shimkel spoke. Her voice was soft and hesitant. My species does not trust easily. We were conquered 3 times in our history. Each time we trusted those who betrayed us, so we learned to trust no one. She paused. But I am here because I want a change. I want my people to be part of something larger. I am afraid, but I am willing to try. The vulnerability in her words shifted something in the group. Crixvel felt his defensive barriers lowering. The Velthari were once conquerors, he said. We took what we wanted and cared nothing for others. Then we faced an enemy we could not defeat alone. We learned that strength through dominance is an illusion. I still struggle with those old habits. I still try to control everything. I am sorry. Theska's scales shifted to a softer color. The Korath fear irrelevance. We were the oldest spacefaring race before the Federation. Now we are one of many. I sometimes feel like we are being forgotten. That makes me defensive when I should be open. All eyes turned to Vrex. The Thornaki warrior was silent for a long moment. Then he removed one of his armored gauntlets, revealing a scarred hand beneath. My people are warriors. We are taught that vulnerability is death. But I have learned on this trip that vulnerability can also be connection. I am afraid of being weak. I am afraid of caring and losing, but I am more afraid of spending my life alone behind armor." The 10 minutes passed in sharing. When they entered the next simulation, something was different. They did not compete for leadership. Instead, they communicated. Vrex's combat skills made him the natural choice for rescue operations. Theska's experience gave her the lead on repairs. Krixvel coordinated their efforts. And Shimkel, with her small size and quick reflexes, handled tasks the others could not. They completed the scenario with time to spare. The simulations continued throughout the day, growing more complex. In one, they had to negotiate a peace treaty while under time pressure. In another, they had to solve a puzzle that required combining knowledge from all their cultures. In a third, they faced a scenario where one of them had to sacrifice their chance at victory for the others to succeed. When that scenario came, it was Vrex who volunteered. The mighty Thornaki warrior, who had started this journey dismissing pack bonding as weakness, chose to give up his own success so that his new friends could achieve theirs. "Why?" Krixvel asked him afterward. "Because you would have done the same for me," Vrex said simply. "I know this because I know you now. That is what pack bonding is, knowing someone well enough to trust them with your life, and being trustworthy enough to deserve that faith." That evening, instead of a formal dinner, the humans organized something they called a bonfire gathering. All the ambassadors sat together around a large fire under the open sky. The night was clear, and stars stretched endlessly overhead. In ancient times, Dr. Okonkwo explained, humans would gather around fires to share stories and strengthen bonds. There is something about firelight that makes us more open, more honest, more connected to each other. She was right. As the flames crackled and danced, the ambassadors began to share stories they had never told before. Ambassador Krixvel spoke of his childhood dreams of exploring the stars. Theska told of the ancient songs her grandmother had taught her. Vrex recited battle poetry that brought tears to eyes around the circle. And Shimkel, who had been so quiet, sang a song of her people, a melody of loss and hope that transcended language. As the night deepened, Dr. Okonkwo stood. "Tomorrow is your last day with us," she said. "Before you return to the Federation, we must discuss how to spread what you have learned. But tonight, I want to give you something, a gift from humanity." Humans emerged from the darkness carrying small boxes. Each ambassador received one. "Open them," Dr. Okonkwo said. Inside each box was a simple bracelet. It was woven from threads of different colors, each color representing one of the species present. On Earth, friends sometimes make these for each other. They are called friendship bracelets. They have no value except what we give them. They are symbols of connection, reminders that someone cares about us, thinks about us, considers us part of their pack. She held up her own wrist, where a similar bracelet hung. "We made these for you. Each thread was woven by a different human who has worked with you this week. Every person who touched your life here has left a mark on your bracelet." Krixvel looked at the small object in his hands. It was so simple, so trivial. And yet, as he slipped it onto his wrist, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. He felt like he belonged. Around the fire, ambassadors from 12 species all put on their bracelets. Some struggled with the unfamiliar clasp. Others helped them. And in that simple act of helping each other with such a small thing, the lessons of the week were demonstrated one final time. "I do not wish to leave," Theska said quietly. "You will carry what you have learned with you," Dr. Okonkwo said. "And you will not be alone. We will stay in contact. We will support each other. We will be pack, even across the vast distances of space." "How can you be certain?" Krixvel asked. "Because that is what pack bonding means. Once you are part of our pack, you are family forever. Distance cannot break that. Time cannot diminish it. Even death cannot end it. Sarah Kim still protects Vel'Thaz. Spirit still explores Mars in the hearts of those who loved it. And you will still be our friends no matter where the stars take you." The fire burned lower, but no one moved to leave. They sat together, species who had been strangers a week ago, watching the flames and feeling the warmth of connection. The stars above witnessed something that had not happened in 12,000 years of Federation history, true friendship being born between worlds. The final morning arrived too quickly. The ambassadors gathered one last time in the meeting room where their journey had begun. But the room felt different now, or perhaps they were different. Dr. Okonkwo stood before them with a data pad in her hands. Today, we discuss implementation. How do we take what you have learned and spread it throughout the Federation? How do we teach pack bonding to species that have never known it? Ambassador Crixvell raised his hand. May I speak? Of course. I have been thinking about this all night. We cannot simply teach pack bonding as a technique or a strategy. It must be experienced. That means we need programs like this one, but on a much larger scale. Exchange programs, joint academies, shared challenges that force species to depend on each other. The Federation will resist, Theska said. The bureaucracy is vast. Change takes centuries. Then we do not wait for the Federation, Vrex said. His voice was firm. We start small. Each of us returns to our home worlds. We create our own programs. We share what we have learned with those closest to us. And we stay connected to each other, supporting each other's efforts. A network, Shimkel said softly. We become a network of friends spreading throughout the galaxy. Dr. Okonkwo smiled. You have already learned the most important lesson. Pack bonding does not require grand institutions or official programs. It requires individuals who care enough to reach out. You 12 can start a revolution simply by being what you have become. They spent hours working out details. They would establish regular communication schedules. They would share reports on their progress. They would visit each other's worlds to demonstrate cross-species friendship in action. And they would train others, creating new ambassadors who could spread the principles further. What do we call ourselves? Theska asked. We need a name, something to unite us. Crixvell looked at the bracelet on his wrist. The pack. We are the first members of a pack that will eventually include every species in the galaxy. Ambitious, Dr. Okonkwo said. I approve. As the meeting concluded, the ambassadors were summoned to an unexpected event. The human president wished to address them before their departure. President Yuki Nakamura was an older woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair. She met them not in a formal chamber, but in a garden behind her residence. She sat on a simple bench, surrounded by flowers, and gestured for them to join her. I wanted to speak with you before you left, she said. Not as a head of state, but as one person to others. What you have undertaken is important, more important than any treaty or trade agreement. We are grateful for all that your people have taught us, Crixvell said. You have taught us as well, the president replied. You have reminded us why we value connection so deeply. Sometimes humans forget. We take our bonds for granted. Seeing them through your eyes has renewed our appreciation. She rose and walked among them, stopping briefly before each ambassador. The galaxy is vast and often cold, but it does not have to be lonely. You carry with you the power to change everything, not through weapons or wealth, but through simple acts of kindness, trust, and love. Never underestimate what those things can accomplish. She stopped before Ambassador Vrex. Warrior, I understand you were skeptical when you arrived. I was, Vrex admitted. I believed pack bonding was weakness. And now? Vrex straightened to his full height. Now I believe it is the greatest strength in the universe. I will carry this truth back to my people. I will teach the young warriors that true courage is not standing alone, but standing with others. I will tell them that the mightiest army is one that fights not for conquest, but for love. The president smiled. Then I have no fear for the future. The farewell at the spaceport was difficult. Dr. Okonkwo embraced each ambassador in turn, a gesture that no longer felt strange or inappropriate. Samuel Chen came to say goodbye to Crixvel, and the two held hands in the human fashion. "Visit me," Samuel said. "Visit often." "I will, and you must visit Velthar Prime. I want to show you the mountains where I grew up. I want you to meet my family." "Family," Samuel repeated. "Yes, that is what we are now." The shuttle took them back to Station Prime. As they traveled, the ambassadors did not retreat to their separate sections as they would have a week ago. Instead, they sat together, talking, planning, dreaming about the future they would create. News of their mission had spread throughout the Federation. When they arrived at the station, they found crowds waiting to hear what they had learned. Representatives of dozens of species pushed forward, hungry for answers to the Federation's crisis. The High Council demanded an immediate report. Crixvel stood before the assembly of the galaxy's most powerful beings and delivered his findings. "The humans have discovered something we have sought for 12,000 years, he began. "Not through technology or resources, but through the simple capacity to love beyond boundaries. They bond with everything they encounter. They form families across species lines. They would die for friends they have known only days, and they have offered to teach us their way." He spoke for an hour, sharing stories of what he had seen and experienced. He told of children playing together, of soldiers dying for comrades of other species, of an elderly human who had become his brother in a week. He showed them his bracelet and explained what it meant. "This is not a diplomatic strategy," he concluded. "It is a way of being. We cannot legislate pack bonding or enforce it through treaties. We can only live it, demonstrate it, and hope that others choose to join us. The 12 of us have formed the pack. We will spread throughout the Federation, teaching and modeling these principles. We invite anyone who wishes to learn to join us." The Council's reaction was mixed. Some dismissed the report as naive idealism. Others saw promise but doubted it could scale. A few, however, understood immediately what was being offered. Ambassador Theska stepped forward. "I have lived for 300 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched the Federation grow weak and fragmented. And I tell you now that what the humans offer is our only hope. Not because they are stronger or smarter, but because they know something we have forgotten. They know that no being should be alone. They know that connection is the foundation of everything good in the universe." Vrex added his voice. "I am a warrior. I have won battles and lost friends. I thought I knew what strength meant. The humans showed me I was wrong. True strength is not in armor or weapons. It is in the bonds we form with others. I will spend the rest of my life teaching this truth." One by one, all 12 ambassadors spoke. And as they spoke, something remarkable happened. Members of the council began to listen. Really listen. Not for political advantage or diplomatic opportunity, but with genuine interest and growing hope. By the end of the day, the first seeds had been planted. The council agreed to establish exchange programs with Earth. They authorized the creation of joint academies where young beings of all species could live and learn together. They approved funding for research into cross-species bonding techniques. But more important than any official action was what happened in the corridors afterward. Council members approached the ambassadors privately. They asked questions. They shared their own loneliness, their own hunger for connection. They asked how they could join the pack. Within a year, the pack had grown from 12 to thousands. Within a decade, it had spread to every corner of the Federation. The change was slow at first, but it accelerated as success stories accumulated. Conflicts that had festered for centuries were resolved through friendship rather than negotiation. Trade disputes became opportunities for mutual support rather than competition. Species that had been enemies for millennia discovered they could be family. Crixvel lived to see the transformation. In his final years, he was no longer Ambassador Crixvel. He was simply Crix, beloved friend to thousands across the galaxy. His skin, which had once shown the purple of worry, now shone with colors of joy and contentment he had not known existed. When he died, The memorial service brought together beings from every species in the Federation. Samuel Chen's descendants were there, having maintained the family bond across generations. Dr. Okonkwo, now elderly but still vibrant, spoke of the day they had met and how far they had come. And at the end of the service, they did something that had become tradition throughout the Federation. They wove bracelets, simple bands of thread, each color representing a different species. They wore them as symbols of a truth that humans had taught the galaxy. No one had to be alone. No species had to stand apart. The universe was vast and sometimes frightening, but it was also filled with potential friends, potential family, potential pack members waiting to be found. And it had all started because a small, young species called humanity had never learned to stop loving strangers. They had bonded with wolves and machines and stars. And when they reached the galaxy and found others who had forgotten how to connect, they simply did what they had always done. They made them family. They brought them into the pack. And the galaxy was never the same.